There are strange things out there that seem to have no explanation. Sometimes they are conjured up by the darkest corners of our subconscious, but on occasion they dwell beyond the confines of our imagination. They may come from another realm, or out of the sky, or from beyond the grave. Once they set foot into our world, the line between dreams and reality becomes unclear. It's our job to investigate these reports and compile the Virginia Paranormal Case Files.
We hear music a lot after we go to bed usually. I call it monk music. Are you familiar with Gregorian chant?
Yeah.
You know, well, it sounds a little bit like that. One lady that was here suggested that it was Native American and not monk music at all. I guess there's a parallel there.
Does it sound like it's coming from out in the woods or in the house?
When I'm laying there asleep, I hear it sometimes if she doesn't, but a lot of nights I'll say, honey, can you hear it? She said, music? I said, yeah. Oh yeah, I heard it. No, it just sounds like it is. God, this whole mess started with a woman, voice woman, telling me it was time to quit. I've had 14 surgeries. I got heart troubles, lung troubles, and everything. So, and I don't like to sit. Tell it, call me by name. And of course, when you live with your wife and you hear a woman say it's time to quit, you think it's your wife, right? So I come in the house and I say, what you want? And I get, what do you mean? What do I want? I said, well, didn't you just call me? No, I haven't heard you. I called you. I was in the shower one night carrying on a conversation with a woman who I thought was my wife. And the door opened and it was her. And she said, who are you talking to? I said, what wasn't I talking to you? She said, look, I've been in the kitchen. I could hear you talking and thought you were calling me. So that has been almost from the time we moved here from Pocosin. There's never been a house on this lot. We built this place.
Oh, okay.
So there's not that's not here. The other thing, early thing that we got, when my sons were both dating, they weren't either one married yet, we would have campfires in the backyard and sit around and I'd tell the girls stories and stuff, but there is something that sounds for all the world like a horse about as tall as she is, whinnying. We're sitting around the fireplace and you hear, and it's over there. And then the next time you hear it, it's right here. And then the next time it's there. And it's been witnessed by 6 or 8 people at least, yeah. And we can never figure out what it is. You shine lights and you walk to the edge of the woods and look. You can tell I hunt, so I'm pretty familiar with wood sounds and animal sounds and stuff. I've never heard anything to compare with it, except it sounds like a miniature horse. So that's kind of where we started with it here. There's a clock. You guys probably didn't notice, but when you come in, that you have to wind up, and it's got a little pendulum. Belonged to her granddaddy, who died when she was like 5 years old, 1963 or something. And we've never used it because it's an old antique clock. You have to wind it up. And we're sitting here in the living room one day and it started chiming the hour and a half hour, and it did that for 3 days straight without us ever winding it up. We came home, we've got 4 grandkids. And kids that age, they're not real into picking up their toys. So she had gone through and after they left and put all the toys in the toy boxes and even separated the crayons from the name brand to the, to the Walmart Super Saver brand, and broke them all up and stacked the coloring books and put the toys away. And we came home from Smithfield one day, and I came in first, and she comes in talking, and I said, "Be quiet. What's the matter?" I said, "I hear music. Do you hear music?" She said, "Yeah, I hear music." And I said, "Well, I don't think I left the television on or anything." So we started investigating. She goes down to the toy room, and it looks like somebody had taken these crayons and threw them up in there and just let them scatter wherever they wanted to be. Coloring books all over the place, and there's this little infant baby swing. You set them on a table or something, and it rocks and shines light on the ceiling and plays music. And that son of a gun was shining lights on the ceiling and rocking and playing music. There hadn't been anybody home 3 hours. And so, yeah, and the switch was turned off, and it's just we'll fast forward a ways. I had trouble sleeping. And to keep from bothering her, I started getting up and going down to the other end of the house. And this is the only part of this whole thing that bothered me any, but something doesn't want me down there. I actually woke up one night like somebody was smothering me. That's what it felt like. So I don't go down there anymore and sleep. My cousin, we called him Bubba Joe. His name was Albert Nelson Firth. And he was born at home by a midwife, and he lived 70 years and never saw a doctor. He never had a cold. He never caught the flu. Nothing. He came home from crabbing. When his wife is Alice Nell Firth, works at the funeral home some. And he said, "I'm going to," she said, he said, "I'm going to take a nap, wake me up for supper." And when she went to get him, he was already stiff. Wow. He died like that. And Bubba Joe, I told a couple that we had one day, she said, "What kind of a guy was he?" I said, "Well, he was kind of a man that every boy wanted to grow up to be. He didn't have any enemies. He worked hard and made money. He was a good ball player. I mean, he just, everybody loved him, And I was about to get sick and didn't know it. I woke up one morning at 2 o'clock. My recliner was there. And I came in here and closed the door real gentle behind me so I wouldn't wake her up, and he was sitting in my recliner. Been dead 3 years. And I said, "Well, what are you doing here?" And he said, "Come see you." I said, but you can't do that, you're dead." He said, "You're going on a damn good way to be the next one." That's the way he talked. And I said, "Well, nothing wrong with me, I feel good." He said, "What about me? Never sick a day in my life, but I'm dead, ain't I?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I guess you are." "What's gonna kill me?" He said, "You can't work all the time, Hoss." And I wiped my eyes, and when he's gone, haven't seen him since. I see my granddaddy when I'm in the shop a lot. We have a lot of stuff happen during the daytime, and I don't know if that's typical or not, but I'll be out in the shop by myself a lot of times, and I'll see him peeking through the front window of the shop. And you see him, and then you look back, and he's gone. I didn't know who it was. He died when I was almost 6 years old, and I didn't have any pictures of him. So I couldn't remember from that long ago what he looked like. Right. And wasn't last Christmas, was it, honey? Was it last Christmas? No. Christmas before last. I was down there telling my mom and dad about it at Christmas time. The whole family's there. I got one sister who doesn't believe anything you tell her anyway. And she said, "Well," my mom said, "Well, what do he look like?" I said, "Well, Mom, I don't know, Mom. He's middle-aged, I guess, a little older. Black hair, parted down the middle, cut real short on the sides. Wearing like a flannel work shirt." She said, "That sounds like your granddad. Ain't your granddad, is it?" I said, "Well, I don't know. I don't know what he looked like." And so my dad went and got a picture. And I'm not a real emotional kind of a guy, but he put this picture in front of me, and what happened? I started bawling. I mean, it was him. And the only thing I could think to say was, he's been dead since 1966. Why am I seeing him now? Yeah. She said, "Well, either he's worried about you, he's got something he needs to tell you." more recent, my son gave me a workhorse lawn and garden tractor. They haven't made them in ages. They were more tractor than grass cutter.
Yeah.
And I'm rigging it up to drag the driveway, but I couldn't get it running. I had replaced the fuel pump on it with a different kind, and new muffler, new battery, everything, and I couldn't get it running. So one Saturday morning, he came over. He's mechanic at Riggins Ford.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Him and Neil Graham.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I'll get it running, Dad. So he came up. We worked on that thing from 8 or 9 o'clock that morning till about 2, and we couldn't get it to run. We couldn't get it to do anything. Pushed it behind the shop. I said, I'm tired of messing with it. We pushed it behind the shop and left it, went in the shop, and I don't know what were we doing in the shop. Cleaning up. Tools.
The tools.
Cleaning the tools up in the shop. That son of a bitch started right up. Excuse my French. It started right up. I said, what is that? And he said, that's the tractor, Dad. So he ran out. He ran out to it. It cut off before he got there. And he looked, the switch was turned off and everything. So he came on back in and closed the door. We started cleaning the tools up again. It started up again. And he's 40 now. And he had a real funny look on his face. But he went back out to check on it anyway. So we've got the disappearing tool thing. Did I mention that? Yeah, you set your hammer down or your saw or whatever you're working with. I build oyster tongs, shafts, and heads, and go get a cup of coffee or your lunch or whatever. When you come back, tools are all gone. Look, we got 2 hammers that we still haven't found.
Just one yellow one.
The yellow one. We found the other one?
I thought so.
No. We got 2 missing hammers.
Things disappear all the time.
Off of the desk and everything, but you know, you turn everything upside down looking for it and don't find it and give up, grab another one, and when you go back to where you were at, it's laying there.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing. So I don't know what's going on here or why.
So far nothing other than I guess the green upgrade button.
That's good. That's a good sign. So
Yeah.
no carbon monoxide present. So we can rule that out as any rational explanation for some of the things that have been seen.
Yeah, and so far in the house, pretty normal. There is one spot that I want to show you guys as we're walking around the house to kind of figure out why this would be going up. Let me show you. So, walk this way. So in this room, you stand in here, it's higher than what it normally should be. And so you just kind of follow it. You watch as it goes around, and you see how it gets really high.
Because the TV's
It's
plugged
got to
in.
be that dish.
It's not.
No?
And this is why it's important to follow what's behind this wall.
Ah, the electric box.
It's so high it goes off the scale. So even being in the middle of that room, that's still above normal. So now we know that if we're ever in this room tonight, we got to look at something that's more than a 2.0 even. Something that's incredibly high. So I can only imagine just being next to something like this all the time, like that.
Right.
That
That could really
electromagnetic
mess you up.
field going through you, yeah.
How was the feel of the house?
It feels normal. Nothing strange.
We're going to start off with an EVP session back here in what used to be the old playroom. And we can still hear the REM pod just kind of acclimating as we just brought it in. Will has a good reasoning for starting in here.
So earlier when we were doing the baseline sweep, I noticed that right here in this little corner, the tri-field meter went way up. It went up to above a 40. That's because on the other side of this wall is the box with all the electrical stuff. So we think that possibly in this room where all the crowns were thrown up in the air and things were moved around, that electrical box was the energy source for the spirit to manifest to be able to do that kind of thing. And so when you have something that has all of that energy, it's able to pull from it to be able to either manifest in a physical form or for it to do an action like throwing up the crown. So we figured this would be a good room to go ahead and try that in.
All right, I'm Jeff.
I'm Emily.
Oh well.
And I will.
And we'd like to know if there's anybody else here with us. You may have seen that if you come near this red light, it will turn green. Okay. If that is you doing that, because sometimes this device will go off, and we wonder if it's someone actually coming near it. If that is you, you can use that to tell us yes, to make it green for yes. If you can do that, you understand what I'm saying, you're willing to do that, will you light it up for me now? Okay, pretty solid light. What we're here, all right. So the reason we're here, we came into what was the playroom, and this is where the crayons got tossed around and the swing kept going by itself. Put the REM pod down on the floor, and it just started going off, kind of at random. The gentleman that lives here, Jeff, he's had some things get tossed around in this room, some crayons. There's a little swing in here that kept moving, and he's trying to figure out who was doing that. Could you try telling us your name? Are you an adult? Are you a child? So that went off quite a few times there. I'm going to ask a confirming question just to see. Are you an adult?
That is Linda entering the room.
Are you a child? What we want to do is confirm that we're actually getting intelligent responses. So that's why I asked, are you an adult? Are you a child? I asked that twice. And the second time I didn't get the same response. The first time it lit up after I said, are you a child?
Have you gotten any responses yet? Anything happen?
The REM pod was going off, but just kind of random.
Okay.
So we're using the REM pod to see if anything was in the room with us. We tried for it to interact with the REM pod by it touching it, and it did a few times, but not anything that would reconfirm it.
Jeff has told us that someone might be trying to tell him a message. We're a way for you to communicate that message to him.
But it's a child. It's not gonna understand. I mean, I think if it was a Native American child, it's not gonna understand this. It's just gonna play with it. Like the last
Playing
house.
with it.
Remember the last house? They just kept going on and off, and it was supposed to be a little girl that died up there.
These two devices, this one that I'm pointing at, and the one that's next to that red light you've been touching, if you talk into it, we can hear you. So tell us, what is the message you want us to give to Jeff? And if you can't speak into those, use the red light like you have. I'm going to ask a question. If the answer is yes, I want you to touch it. If the answer is no, I don't want you to touch it. I want you to leave it alone. Are you concerned for Jeff's health? We asked the spirit to go ahead and touch the REM pod. If it was an adult, it did not touch it. When we asked if it was a child, it did touch the REM pod. The light went up to green. We asked a confirming question for it to turn green. It did. However, when we asked other questions, it seemed to go off randomly. It seemed to go off when we weren't asking a question, or it seemed to go off long after we had already asked a question and we were just kind of sitting here in the dark. So, can't really confirm if there was anything acting intelligently to it. We'll have to revisit it and see if we can get the same results.
So I just reviewed the audio, and I really didn't hear anything out of the ordinary, except for the fact that the REM pod kept going off just sort of randomly, like we said. Really no good explanation for why that thing would keep going off like that. It certainly was in the room long enough to acclimate to the environment, so it couldn't have been humidity differences or something of that nature setting it off. Right as of now, I don't really have a good explanation for that, but it certainly didn't seem to be responding to the questions intelligently.
So what we're going to do now is an EVP session around the client in the living room here, in case whatever is here is attached to him. Now, that's a good possibility, as people have told him before that things are attached to him, but also given that some of the things happen when he's not in the house, it would also lead us to believe that there is something or someone wandering around this house. He also mentioned when somebody previously came in, I guess she was some sort of a medium, she came over and she came down with some names. And she said these people are over here in this corner where he has this trident where he used to go, or his grandfather used to go gigging frogs with it. We're going to go, that's all in this living room area there. So we're going to put the REM pod down, we're going to do an EVP session in there, and see if we get any responses. I'm Jeff.
I'm Linda.
I'm Will.
I'm Will.
I'm Emily.
And you know the residents. We're trying to find out who else, aside from those of us who mentioned our name and the residents, who else is here with us? Could you try telling us your name? Or, as the dog has demonstrated, if you touch that, it'll turn green. You can light that up for a yes response if you'd prefer to communicate with us that way. Can you tell us if you've been here since before this house was here on this land? Were you here before this house was built? There was a strange noise. Came from over there. Did you make a noise?
I didn't hear it.
No?
I didn't hear it either. What did it sound like?
Sounded like a girl's voice.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, but while we were sitting here talking to him earlier, I heard something not too long after he mentioned hearing something like a TV. I heard something from over in their bedroom.
Yeah. Unless it was like a squeak or something.
I sound like someone was talking. Will said something about it too, so I know it wasn't tripping.
Are you related to anybody that lives in this house?
Yes.
You are?
Or yes.
Oh.
I was like, wait, what?
I forgot he was doing a live EVP
Yeah,
Like,
session.
oh, Will's revealing something here, a connection.
So was he saying yes, or did he hear yes?
He heard yes.
Oh, awesome.
Who is it that you're related to? We did an EVP session in the living room. And what was interesting about this EVP session is the fact that the REM pod did not go off once. It was going off like crazy back in this last room. The REM pod did not go off once. There were some noises that we're probably going to have to weed through, as there was some ambient noise and background noise. But there were some cases during the EVP session where Will, who was listening live, thought he heard a response. And there was one particular point where I'm really interested in, where I heard what sounded like a woman's voice almost coming from the front yard. And I'm not sure, it may have been a chair squeaking or something like that. So it's another point we're going to go back and review right here as Linda goes over the audio.
So I just went over the audio, and I did hear the time that he thought he had heard a yes in response to a question, and I couldn't be certain that it wasn't the dog, but it definitely sounded like somebody saying yes, and it sounded like a male voice. So, we'll just kind of keep track of that one, but other than that, there really wasn't anything else.
Okay, so what we're going to do now is go into the master bedroom and activate the spirit box, because in there is where, when he was in the bathroom, he heard a woman's voice talking to him. So we're going to go back, and since we haven't had any luck with the EVP so far, we're going to try running the spirit box and see if that is maybe a better means for something to communicate with us. I'm Jeff.
Linda?
I'm Emily.
And aside from the four of us, we'd like to know if there is anybody else here with us. Could you please try telling us your name? We'd like to find out who it was that was talking to Jeff when he was in here in the bathroom. The woman that he thought was his wife.
Is there some reason why the dog doesn't like to come in here unless the light's on? Is there something frightening in here? What is that thing out in the yard that sounds like a small horse?
What's your favorite thing to eat for lunch?
Grilled cheese.
Yeah, I thought I heard BLT.
I thought I heard grilled cheese.
Definitely worth review.
And they had BLTs back then? Or grilled cheese?
How many people have been living on this land besides Jeff and his wife?
Couple of things that possibly came through on the spirit box, but we're not 100% certain. I noted that it's interesting that the REM pod did not go off there at all. Is this house haunted? Okay, what we're going to do right now is we're going to pick up the spirit box and do a little bit of a rolling spirit box session where we go around the house, ask questions throughout the living room and the kitchen and in the other bedrooms, and see if there's any place where we're getting more responses than the others. I also, along the way, I want to take the REM pod back to the playroom because the REM pod has not gone off since. That's the only place that it's gone off, so I want to take it back to there and try to determine if there's some kind of paranormal activity in there that's causing it to go off, or if we can determine some kind of a natural element that is causing this to activate. This clock used to belong to you. Is there a particular room of the house that you like to? We came out and we stopped in the kitchen because we all thought we heard, when I said, what's your favorite thing to have for lunch? We thought we heard grilled cheese. So we came out to the kitchen and tried to say, hey, we can make you a grilled cheese sandwich. Let us know what it is that you want. The REM pod starts going off again for the first time in a while. We're in the kitchen. If it is a grilled cheese sandwich that you want, can you tell us again through this device that Will's holding? We might be able to see what we can whip up here. Is there anything we can make you? What is your favorite meal? Your favorite thing to eat?
That thing just went off.
Yeah.
That's it?
That REM pod.
There we go. We believe you can make this come on. But can you make it come on to talk to us? Can you do green for yes? Are you a woman? Now I gotta ask my next question and wait the same amount of time. Are you a gentleman? Now at first we thought it was possibly intelligent responses. We asked confirming questions, but then it just stopped going off completely. As if the spirit either had just gone away, or got tired of interacting with us, or perhaps didn't have enough energy to. Are you a child? Are you younger than 11? I tried to do an example where I would touch my hand up to the antenna to show whoever was here how to do it in case they couldn't understand what I was saying. So I touched the antenna and then kind of went like this. You try it. And it did it. And then I did it again twice to see if I could get some kind of a pattern going, and it didn't. So I can't say for sure that we established any intelligent communication in the kitchen. Okay, this seems to be the room where you were able to use this the most. Can you do that for us again now? We walked into the back room where we started out, and we put the REM pod on the floor, and it did not go off the whole time it was there. The conditions were the same. It was in just about the same position in that room, and it did not go off once the entire time we were back in that room. Kind of think about it. It was going off the first time like crazy. Second time we go back there, didn't go off at all. So one thing we can say for certain is something was affecting that REM pod the first time that was not present the second time, be it paranormal or natural. We couldn't find any natural explanation as to why that REM pod would have gone off the first time. Before we leave, is there anything that you want to tell us? This may be your last chance to get your message across clearly. Will brought about a very interesting question. A lot of times there seems to be a delayed response. One of the theories is that perhaps spirits take time to manifest. They don't have the energy to answer right away. I've seen this happen, but I've also seen, I'd have to say more times, it happened that it almost gives us an immediate response. So I'm not sure what to think about that theory. Because a lot of times when we've been getting intelligent responses, it seemed to be almost immediate after we asked the question, whether through the spirit box or via the REM pod. We're not 100% sure. Do spirits need to work up some energy to manipulate these objects? Some of them seem pretty strong. So that question remains to be answered.
Alright, so just sitting here thinking, I was just wondering, if it's a Native American, from, like we say, what we just say, Jeff, 1900, no, 1700s. 1800s.
Yeah, it could be anytime within.
Yeah, they're not gonna necessarily, especially a kid. They're not gonna necessarily understand what we're saying, you know, verbatim, because they weren't talking like that back then. One thing I do want to bring to attention is when you ask someone for their favorite food, this is kind of stereotypical. But if I ask a grown man, you know, like, what's your favorite food? 9 times out of 10, he's not gonna say grilled cheese, you know. So I personally think it's a kid, you know, just playing with it, maybe curious. That's something that would attract the kid. You know, it's nice, lights up, colors. Same thing happens to us with the last house, so you know.
And the things that were moved around in that room.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the toys. There was nothing but toys being moved around. So if I put 2 and 2 together, I would say it's probably the kid that he thinks that it is. Another thing is that kids, I don't think a kid would be as strong as an adult. So maybe that kid is playing with it, you know, going crazy, losing all his energy, rebuilding it, and then coming back playing with it again, and that's maybe why we're getting those responses.
I agree with what Will said, along with the response to what their favorite food was, because most kids, they don't ask for lobster, they ask for things that they can eat, like simpler foods. And also with the toy situation, a full-grown man or a woman would not go and play with crayons to go show their appearance. They would most likely go and move a book or open a door or things like that.
I think it's a gremlin, personally. I think there's something here that is some sort of creature from another dimension, and it passes back and forth. I think it comes in, you know, screws with the crayons, throws them around, causes mischief, does all kinds of crazy stuff, you know, makes hoarse whinnying noises out in the back, and you know, then goes back to wherever it came from.
Is that a valid? Like, is that a valid thing?
Yeah. He's got some creature out back that makes noise that he said sounds like it's very small.
Right.
Okay? Whatever this thing is, it's this thing running around laughing in the backyard. Right? Okay. I'm mostly Irish. Like, we come from this stuff.
Right.
You know? But we know that there's things that come from other dimensions, not necessarily classified as a demon or classified as just a spirit, a human spirit. It's one of those things that's more like of the earth, you know, from another dimension, passes back and forth. He's probably got a portal out here in his backyard somewhere, and this thing comes in and just screws around a lot, you know, throws the kids' crayons around. You know, there was a few things that he described as activity in the house that could be things that were, I guess, it could be attributed to some sort of creature. The fact that it's not going to respond to us, it's just going to come and grab the antenna a couple times and make the light go off and, you know, then go somewhere else.
Would you put gremlins in the same category as gnomes?
Well, you know, I say gremlin because that's, you know, the easiest term.
Because when I think
describe it as,
gremlin, I think the thing that William Shatner's trying to shoot off the plane in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, me too. That was cool.
And that thing wasn't little. That was a big gremlin.
That was a big gremlin.
You see that thing running through the backyard, you're going to think there's a polar bear out
Yeah,
there.
but I mean, it all comes, I think, from the same basic, you know, sort of legends and folklore. It all comes from, you know, basically that part of Europe. The same thing with, you know, fairies and with, you know, gnomes and, like you say, with leprechauns and all that stuff. I mean, it could be any one of those things, but we don't know enough about it. But that's my theory.
I think that's a good one. I think that's good.
So it sounded like there were actually a couple of responses here. The first one, and probably the clearest one, was the answer to the question, what do you like to eat for lunch, or what's your favorite thing to eat? Jeff was correct in this. It does say BLT. It does not say grilled cheese. BLT, okay?
What's your favorite thing to eat for lunch?
Now, a child wouldn't say that.
No, that's right.
Because kids don't like vegetables.
No, usually not.
Back then they might have, because they might have had.
Maybe.
Do you think they had BLTs back then?
Yeah.
I mean, they definitely could, like, they could have made their own form of bread in, like, a self-made oven and then used the vegetables that they grew.
And
Hey,
plus,
very
farm
possible.
animals.
plus we don't know what era this spirit could be from.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So it's not grilled cheese, it's BLT.
Yeah.
BLT.
It's BLT.
BLT's back in the 1700s.
They could have.
It
And
could
then
be a
we-
modern spirit, though.
We don't know if it's from back then or if it's from now.
Yeah,
Right.
you said they've lived here for like what, 15 years?
Yeah.
They could
Yeah.
have grown the vegetables, baked
It could
their
have
own
followed
bread.
him home from the store or something like that.
I doubt that.
Could have followed him home from Burger King.
Oh yeah, Subway.
Okay, so the second response that we got was one that didn't actually answer a question. It was just kind of a random statement. This is a child's voice. Let me play that for you. It definitely, you scare me. You scare me. And it might have a little bit of a weird little accent there, but that would explain why it's not really interacting with us quite so much. It's fascinated by the lights, you know what I mean? Like you said, I think Will said that, you know, because if it's a child, you know, it might be a little more hesitant.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're from the 1800s and you got us just coming in the house with a bunch of equipment that you never seen before.
Right.
Yeah.
That's going to be intimidating. This next one actually goes in a little bit along with those lines, but this time it sounds like a man's voice again, but he's talking about the boy. So listen to this.
Are you a child?
The guy said the boy's trapped.
The boy's trapped.
The boy's trapped is what he says. So I think there's definitely a male spirit here, and he's trying to convey that there's something about this child. The child is trapped here. The child is a little bit intimidated by what we said, but it definitely seems like the spirit box has been the best thing that we found to respond for these particular spirits. That's not always the case. Sometimes it's EVPs that work better for other spirits, or even, you know, just the REM pod. But in this case, definitely the spirit box.
Could be a cue to how he passed away. Maybe he got trapped in something and drowned or suffocated, or who knows. But some interesting responses that are through here, and we're going to play these for the resident and see where he wants to go from here. After reviewing the possible evidence, Jeff decided that he was okay sharing his home with the spirits, as long as they didn't interfere with his daily life. We still have many questions pertaining to the possible spirit of the little boy. We plan on following up with this case until we found a way to help him.